So it's the next day, Sunday to be precise. Today I've gone ahead and rotated through all my bits and pieces. I've found some punchinella. Everybody who does art journaling has punchinella, and if you don't, you should have, because it's perfect for texture. So what I've done is I've actually taken the punchinella and I've punched out some bigger circles or some smaller circles out of the sheet as well. So I've got two ways of doing extra texture on this one. I've also cut some of the punchinella up into strips, which I'm also going to be using for this one. So it seems to be quite a popular kind of texture for using. But I've also got what do you call it, angel's hair, I think it's called, that you can use, and also sheets of jute or hessian burlap, whatever you want to call it. So I've got that I can play with too. And he says pushing things out of the way. I've also got some corrugated cardboard that can be very, very useful for mark making and for doing some texture. So without any more waffle from me, let's just, the writing's still there, it hasn't disappeared. So I'm going to add, let's see, shall we do lighter colours first and then dark? No, I think we'll do darker first, then add light onto it. So I'm going to go red. And some, that was cherry red, that's one of my mark making circles. And I'm going to add into that some pumpkin. Now I'm using a little bit more paint than I did yesterday, just for experimentation processes. So let's get this well and truly oiled up, and I'm only going to go in one direction. It's a good name for a band, that, isn't it? And let's see how the muse is going to react to that. So let's drop that there, that there. Two more strips to go. Actually, I've got one more which has dropped on the floor. Let me just reach down and grab it. And then that can go at the end, like, do we like that? Yeah, well, whatever. It's a bit of a random pattern, so let's see what happens. Now I'm switching from thicker cardstock down to typing paper. See whether that gives us any different kind of effect. Now one concern is movement. Now obviously this paper is going to curl like billy-o because it's going to get super wet. And oh, it's the 5th of July today, by the way, so I hope everybody had a good 4th of July in the States. Okay, let's pull the first print off there and see what we get. Some of the paints have come right the way through, but interesting. Kind of an interesting effect there. So let's take that off. Now, theoretically I ought to wash this, but I'm not going to be running backwards and forwards to the sink. So let's get some more of that paint on, and we'll try out the circles next and see what happens there. I'm only lightly rollering this, so there's still plenty of paint on there. Let's do them in visual triangles. So we've got two visual triangles working on this page. and down we go. Again, just standard typing paper. So you put through a Xerox machine or any photocopier. Or printer for that matter. And oh, that feels a bit tighter. Well, look at that. Perfect. Mikey likey that. All of the paint seems to have come off apart from underneath there. Look at that. Now then, have we got one of the sheets left over from yesterday that I can maybe transfer those spots onto? Let's see, what did we have? Yes, let's use this one. No, let's not use that one. Let's use the blue one that I used and see how they transfer. I am pressing down quite firmly. I was thinking this morning before starting this that I wish you could print directly onto your art journal pages in your book with the Gelli Plate, and I'm sure somebody out there will have done just that. Be interesting to see how that turns out. Cool. I'm liking that. I'm liking the layers, and we seem to be almost clear there, so let's give a little bit of a clean. Now I'm just using a wet wipe and let's give a squirt of water. I'm sticking to the same colour group for these ones, so if there's a little bit of residue left over, not worried, not too bothered. And as we say here in the UK, don't give 'em monkeys. Okay, I'm flicking that because I noticed that when you push down it sometimes bulges, so it just kind of resets itself. I'm using a normal craft mat underneath here, so so it's not going to move anywhere. Okay, so let's move on to the yellow. This is Golden Sun. Yeah, Mum. And Buttercup. So two different yellows, but I have got a dirty brayer, so I'm just going to give that. I'm not going to clean it completely, so I do want some kind of orange coming into this, but not too much just yet. So I'm just going to take off the majority off the brayer, but don't worry too much. And let's see what happens. When we use that angel's hair. If I can find what I did. Oh, it's there. It's there. Right, so I'm going to cut two pieces of this. Round about equal length. Apologies for doing this off camera. So I'm going to do that one like so. There. And this one just over the top. I think actually I need to flick that over, don't I? Maybe weight it down with something. dry piece of paper. Now these are what I call, anyway, first layer prints. So these will be ones that I will go back to later and add more texture to, more layers to. It doesn't appear to be clinging as much as the other ones did. So let's see what happens when we pull that. Okay, interesting. Where we had that double overlap in the middle of the angel's hair. Hardly any of it's come through, that's fine. Got plenty to work at on there. I'll just take that off. And then we'll see how, I need to put that somewhere where it's not going to get paint everywhere. Top of my paint lid. Okay, so I'm going to leave that as it is, and then I'm going to do some circles in there. So I did have a larger circle somewhere I was going to use for mark making, but I can't seem to see what I've done with it. No, we'll have to stick with one of the lids I think that I used yesterday, so we'll use this one. So, let's just make, well, the paint is still fairly wettish, if that's a real word, wettish. One or two more in there. Apologises for my lapses of if I lapse into silence. It's mainly because I'm in one of those creative kind of funks where you forget that other people are listening. Okay, so I've done that one. So what else can we use for making marks? And let's use that tube that I was talking about earlier. Some real smaller ones. Fill in some of those gaps. I am conscious that the paint will be starting to dry on there, because it is again another very, very warm day today. We had a very horrible downpouring of rain, almost like a typhoon, about an hour ago. So much so that I went out to put some trash out, and literally it's a 10-yard dash to the trash can and back, and I got soaked. Okay, I literally had to get changed. I was that wet. Right. Now the thing I think with using the Gelli Plate or any plate for monoprinting like this, whether you're using the silicone mat or whether you're using a glass cutting mat or whether you found something else, made your own, whatever, when you first start doing these, you obviously go through the basics, what I call the basics, which is what I'm doing now. And then after watching lots of YouTube videos, you start getting different ideas on how to create different kind of textures and different shapes, and you start progressing. And it's like everything else. Once you know what you can do, then that's when the fun really starts, when you know what the limitations of it are. I'm just using the paint that was on the on my brayer, and I'm going to come back in now with some of the blobs of orange. Not many, and only little ones. And then I think that's when you start having the big fun, when you kind of know what you're going to get, or hopefully know what you're going to get. I'm going to use those in a diagonal pattern on this now. And then the other strips of punchinella I'm going to drop across on diagonals. Whoops. Whoops. And then we'll have some wavy there. Bit of wavy there. And I'm going to use, I think, move that one in a bit. See, that's already started to... I'm going to lose that bit. One of those there. One of those there. Doesn't have to be symmetrical. Not one little bit. Asymmetry is good, he says. So I've started off with these base layers. You've already seen adding layers afterwards. Now, because we're using acrylic paint, it is permanent, so nothing's going to reactivate. We can just have a jolly good old time. Let me get the circles in. Yep. Okay. Ooh, this one's tight. Jolly good. Some of the paint on from that's dripped down the edges, but that's fine. I have missed that, never mind. Right, so I'll put that to one side and then take off our strips of punchinella and the circles. And then let's have a look at one of the other prints we did yesterday, which are all on the floor beside me here. Something which was a bit darker. Let's see if we can try and lighten that up. Okay, so we've got... I know it's not the greatest of colour combinations. This is the dark blue and the pomegranate, I think we used. Oh no, it was Dusty Rose, wasn't it? So I'm going to transfer some of that onto it, see what happens. I'm not going to get mud, even if none of the colours would normally react that way, because with them being acrylic they're dry, so they're permanent. So once they're dry, they don't mix. So even if you did red and green, it's not going to react. Okay, let's see how that one came out. Starting to dry a little, I think, but we're still getting good texture and we're still pulling off decent prints. So what I'm going to try and do now is just lightly spritz over look at the water. And let that pool. And then grab another sheet and see what happens with that. See if that absorbs into the paper into any interesting pattern, or whether it just flattens down. I'll probably just end it with a hot mess, but hey ho, we lives and we learns. No, hot mess, but still interesting. We can still use that as a base layer. Now I've still got, see, they're still wet but they haven't budged. How weird. Bizarre, bizarre, bizarre. Okay, I'm just using the baby wipe just to remove the majority, and then I'll start on a fresh one. And then, gah. There must be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of you out there going, no, don't do that. Now I can see already that I've got an orange tinge to the top of the plate. So I know that I'm going to have to give it a real good clean and a wash with cold soapy water and dish soap, or hand sanitizer to clean that properly. Okay, let's have a look to see what else we can do. Let's bring in that buttercup. And some splodges of the cherry red. And then using the same brayer, I know I've still got some orange on there, but I don't mind. I love the way you get the lines in it, like ripple lines. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, corrugated cardboard. Let's see, I was going to tear off more of this just to get that texture, but forgot to do it before the start of the video. So I'm just going to use that piece there and turn the other pieces in as a handle, like that, so I can use those as a handle. And let's see what happens. Okay. Liking this. Not a lot, but I'm liking it. Almost creating like a tartan pattern. Oh, that's just my paint falling down. Let's see what happens with that. I'm in the process of having a clear out because I've got hundreds and hundreds of Stampin' Up stamps that discontinued, don't use anymore, and I'm selling a lot of them on eBay at the moment. So the craft room, or the cave, is in a bit of a state because I need more space for things like Gelli Plates and art journals and acrylic paint, and I've ordered a complete set of Dilutions paint, all 12 colours, which I'm expecting to arrive any day. So I need somewhere to put them. So I'm afraid Stampin' Up is out and Dilutions paints are in. Okay, not quite sure why none of that's picked up over there, but that looks pretty damn good to me, if you'll pardon my French. So drop that on the floor. So what we've done so far, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We've done 8 prints so far. And let's just see if we can extract a little bit more life from that paint that we had on there. And let's bring that punchinella back in. This time drop it that way. And then let's see about putting in those little circles. Maybe a big one over in that corner. And let's see what we can get off that. Probably not a lot. It does look like it is drying quite quickly, actually. and like a band-aid, try and pull it off really quickly. And that's pretty much cleared the entire plate. Look at that. Excellent. So off with those, because they still have paint underneath. And I think one last pull and we will call that a day. And what I will do is I will scan all of the sheets and I'll put them on my blog so you can have a look, and if you so wish I'll put them on there so you can print them off yourself, depending on how many there is. I'll try and do as many as I can. So one last over the top of that print, or should I do another day? Oh, I don't know. Interesting. I think that's it. So from what I can gather, I'm getting similar sort of results that I got from the silicone baking mat and also to some extent from the glass mat. The one thing I will say about the Gelli Plate, which is different to all the rest, is that the Gelli Plate is far more sturdy than the silicone mat. The silicone mat's a bit thin, and when you try and use it, it does wobble a little bit. So it does have that going for it. The actual transfer of the paint from the surface onto the paper seems to be better with the Gelli Plate. So I think my opinion is that try it for yourself, but my opinion is if you can't afford a Gelli Plate, try one of the other methods first, the inexpensive silicone mat or the glass cutting mat, and if you're happy with the results, stick with it and save your money until you can afford to buy one of the official Gelli Plates, because I do think actually that you do get just that little bit better results than you do using the silicone mat and the glass cutting mat. I have experimented with a sheet of photopolymer. Here it is. It's thin, but that's the sheet of photopolymer, and I'll just show you a couple of one print or two halves of a print that I did with that. So we're still getting similar, these are the flowers, we're still getting similar results that we got from the Gelli Plate on that photopolymer sheet as well. So it looks as though there are quite a few different ways out there to achieve the look and the feel of a Gelli print without necessarily having to buy a Gelli print. But what I will say is this: it's like cars. You can buy a cheap car that gets you from A to B, or you can buy something which is going to give you better performance that you're going to spend a little bit more money on. And I think that actually is the Gelli Plate. So there you go, there's my final decision. The Gelli Plate is the Rolls Royce, but there's nothing wrong with a Ford or a Pontiac or indeed a Fiat. Okay, well that's it for me. I'm off now because I'm hungry and it's nearly 7 o'clock and I haven't eaten since breakfast. So I will catch you again real soon.